the last question has to do with Saint Teresa and the interior castle. Can we move back and forth between the mansions? Once we reach the seventh mansion, spiritual marriage, will we stay there with the grace of God? And is this mansion a covenant like marriage in the eyes of God, like we call it spiritual marriage? So can we move about within the mansions, and particularly when we get to the seventh, what this whole spiritual marriage, is it like a covenant of marriage in the eyes of God?
Thank you. Now, first part of the question, there are three parts, I think, at least. The first part is, can we move upward and downward, right and left? And the answer is absolutely yes. Teresa of Avila says it. It's not me. She says it. She said there are multiple inside of each mansion. There are different dimensions or rooms in it, and we need to be careful because we can progress, but also we can regress. And who doesn't progress is in fact going backward. So it is an inclined journey, or like a platform, but it's inclined. So if you're not climbing, you're in fact sliding because of the weight of our weakness and our humanity. And now, so it is important to keep the momentum, to keep, I would say, the pressure. This is why I coined the expression ensuring steady growth. Ensuring steady growth. It requires effort, and she says it. It is very, very clearly stated various times. Now, the second part of the question, it's between the lines. It's not asked directly, but I think we have to ask the question. Does this also apply to the seventh mansion? Unfortunately, it does. Remember that Adam was united to God. So the more we progress, we don't lose our freedom. We don't lose our free will. On the contrary, our freedom increases because God is freedom. But doesn't mean freedom to do whatever we want. But it means that we are not. There's not a bond. There's no. We're not forced into union or forced to stay united. We are with God in a relationship, very intimate relationship. And you'd be very surprised to discover that in the seven mansions, this is where Teresa of Avila will use the example of King Solomon. King Solomon starts well, continues his journey, being very close to God and so forth, and serving God. But then toward the end of his life, he marries non-Jewish women. And he starts to worship their gods, the gods of these women, and Egyptian women and so forth. So he ends up very badly. And the only place where Teresa of Avila speaks about this case of King Solomon is the seventh mansion, to tell us that we need to be careful. So just remember this, that our free will is not taken away when we are united with God. It doesn't mean that we are like this in love, but like this with God in a golden cage, as some would say. We are still having our free will. It is an intimate relationship. It's incredible, but in the same time, we are free. God forbid, of course, we don't want to sin, but of course, how can I put it? If you know a person for a long time, a friend of yours, It's difficult to betray this friend after so many years of knowing this friend, you see. So yes, there is a certain difficulty to really fall, but the door is open. This is why Teresa of Avila says, be very careful, be very careful. And remember also that the trials at that stage are tough, are at the measure of the quality of that stage. If you are so intimate with the Lord, what does it mean? It means that there are no screens between you and Him. You have direct access to Jesus Himself. So when you think about it, it's incredible, the intimacy, the accessibility. You can access Him. You don't have God somewhere there in the clouds, and then between you and Him there are clouds. He's there. So so yes, I would say there is a lot of things to do for the Lord, and this intimacy with Jesus implies greater strength to bear trials and difficulties. Teresa of Avila talks about them, but she doesn't stress enough. She says that we need to have enormous compassion for the people who are far from God, instead of a grave sin or mortal sin. Saint Teresa of the Child Jesus said, God gave me that trial only when He knew that I can bear it, because otherwise I could fall, because the trial is very heavy. And Teresa of Avila, in the last beautiful chapter of the Seven Mansions, there are 4 chapters only. For me, the Seven Mansions are 4 chapters, very short, but it's a masterpiece. These 4 chapters are a masterpiece. You can draw from them a lot, and they need to be developed. And they haven't been developed because simply maybe it wasn't the time yet. There is a description, and I would like to share it if you don't mind, just for a second, just to show you. So you should be able to see the website again. And I would like just to show another article. So I go courses, and then solid foundation course. And then you'll notice that top second line here, you have general presentation of spiritual formation. This is a very long article. You need time to read it, digest a little bit, because it takes sometimes years to digest such things. Now, I'm here showing you this drawing here. I know it looks a little bit too angular, but the Roman numerals here are the mentions of Teresa of Avila. But you will notice that the 7 mentioned here in this diagram cover the numbers 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. So it's so rich. These four chapters are so rich, and they haven't been developed enough by Teresa of Avila, simply because, she did what she had to do. You can't ask her for more. But because of the works of Father Louis Guillet and Father Marie-Eugène, I think we need to show what can happen after union, during that state of union with God. So this is why I invite you, invite persons, the students who are being formed for the spiritual direction, to have a look at these numbers. They are described below, 11, 12, 13 through to 17. Some aspects are described by John of the Cross. For instance, till 13, it is described by John of the Cross. Number 17 itself is described by John of the Cross. But from 13 through to 16, this is only due to the research made by Father Louis Guillet, just sticking to the trial of Saint Teresa of the Child Jesus. So there's a lot to do after that. Just think of marriage. Is marriage, does marriage mean the intimacy between this man and this woman who married only? Or it means that hopefully they have a family. Of course, some marriages they don't have the God doesn't give them for many reasons children, but many have children, and it's a great responsibility. Marriage is not just to be with my wife. Marriage is to create a family and to have responsibility, and it's a divine responsibility when you think about it. You are in charge of children, and you are doing something that only God does, which is to raise us, to allow us to grow. It's incredibly divine to be a father and a mother. So what is spiritual marriage? It's why do we use this image also? For the intimacy, but also for the responsibility. So the bride is also called to become a mother, and we are the Jesus bride, and his glory, his greater glory, is to have us as the mother of his children. And this is an entire new chapter. This is why I put it in the middle, the union, because after that, it's incredible the greatness that the Lord is calling us to have or to receive or to undergo. So this gives greater glory to God than just having us united to him. This is why union, the understanding of union, even in the books till now, in the manuals, is extremely poor, in the sense that, yes, I want to be united with Jesus, as if union is the final point. Union is not the final point. The final point is the fullness of love. It's the fruitfulness, to fructify, to bear fruits. You see, that's the final point. So when I marry, I'm not supposed to die, hopefully. There are some who die, but normally I hope to have a long life to be able to fulfill my mission or my call. You see what I'm trying to say? So spiritual marriage has to change in our mind. It's an intimacy, yes, but it's an intimacy pointing toward fruitfulness, toward helping the Lord, serving the Lord. The capacity that the person has to serve the Lord during union, of course, it's a state, is infinitely greater than before. It doesn't mean that we have to wait for unions to have that capacity, because if we wait, nothing will happen. We will not reach union. But the difference is huge. St. John of the Cross, in Spiritual Canticle B, introduction to the stanza 29, he says, one act, one pure act of love from the soul at this junction is worth a great number of all the other acts for the church. So in a time where we think about evangelization, in a time where we think about going out and preaching the gospel and converting people and preparing people and so forth, in a time where, well, it's a long time, because this is more than a century that we are in that state, very much drawn to apostolate, to ministry, to evangelizing, and so forth. We need to think of what are the keys of evangelization. What makes us fruitful? Is it just because we went and we did it, or because we are different? So John of the Cross reminds us, and Therese of the Child Jesus quotes him here. She says, oh, I know, she says, I know because she read it. I know that one pure act of love is worth all the works of the church. Wow. This would change entirely our theology, or our pastoral theology. We will then have to rethink our pastoral theology. And in this case, we will draw closer to what Pope John Paul II said in his letter for the third millennium. He said that holiness should be the plan of the pastoral plan of the parish. Today, holiness is not the pastoral plan of any parish in the world. I hope you can agree with that. No,
Yes.
we
Sadly.
we don't even know what is holiness. So how can you guide a person to holiness? We don't have even the science of holiness available clearly. We give a general advice. You be good, and You love your neighbor, you love this, you go to church, you go to mass, you go to confession, you receive the Eucharist, and then you'll be saint. Oh, that's too general. That's really amateur formula of holiness, which is not serious. You see, so Pope John Paul said that, no? The holiness should become the pastoral plan of the parish. So can you imagine the parish of the third millennium? So think 1,000 years ahead. Can you do that? Think 1,000 years ahead. I know many people think that Jesus will come tomorrow, will come back tomorrow. But I don't think so. For serious reasons. We shouldn't haste his coming back. We should haste our journey to union. So imagine this, no? Imagine how the parish will become in 1,000 years. How holiness would become our daily bread, our understanding of our vocation, and we'll do it. I think that we are still extremely far from that goal, and unfortunately, but we have to work. We have to work.